The whole world
It's
is against you.
I know. It always has been. But thank God Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not against us. Thank God Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala returned us to our land.
So if your narrative is true, for the last 2,000 years, what was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doing with you?
So
if your narrative is true, why was he killing you, persecuting you through Christians and Muslims? Where was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the last 2,000 years? Suddenly he has appeared now and he's supporting a genocidal state.
500,000 people to 1 million people were killed by ISIS. ISIS by every measure.
A million people killed by ISIS.
500,000 women in Syria.
As evil as they were.
Adnan, listen to what, before you start defending Daesh, listen to what I say. I'm going to have to...
Please do that.
Zionist rabbi saying
okay, we're back
you cannot have children.
I condemn him.
You cannot have mercy on women and children in war. You cannot have mercy on women and children in war.
So we agree. Yes? Right, excellent.
Israeli Zionist rabbi.
Got it, we agree.
Israeli Zionist rabbi.
Condemn him, he's terrible.
Okay.
Now,
he's on my Twitter. Go on my Twitter, Adnan Rashid, you'll find him there.
Okay, now that we've established he's another
I can't be bothered to make it in Islam, Judaism.
And the state is practicing.
Okay,
it's okay.
The state is practicing.
You're not threatening me, sus.
Which of you wants to steal man first?
So I'm going to have to chuck in every few seconds
If you could just do your honest best to try and empathize with
just
what
because I'm going to get clipped out of context, I'm going to have to constantly say that this is what they would say.
That's a terrible concern. I can see your point.
Yeah,
really, you're going to get edited out by others?
Yeah, no, 100%.
Okay, fine.
100%.
So both of you say you don't get edited out of context.
What do you want me to do?
I want you
steal
to steal
man,
your
other person.
So
I'm going to argue.
imagine the argument that Joseph has,
No.
and vice versa, and express it as well as you can. And so you don't get clipped out badly, keep chucking in, don't clip me out.
So the Israeli...
try and imagine the Israeli
position.
Yeah. Okay,
Israeli position, the Zionist Israeli position is that we love to suck the blood of children.
That's not Steelmanning.
Okay, wait.
I'm
giving
the
position.
Sorry. Maybe
I'm giving the position.
Sorry.
Okay. And
Sorry.
we love killing children of the Palestinians, in particular children, because this is what some Zionist rabbis have been teaching them. They've been teaching them. I have the evidence on my Twitter where some Zionist rabbis have said that you cannot have mercy on the women and children of the enemy.
That's not still You're not doing what I asked.
And the reason why we are in this land is because the biblical text promised this land for us, but they are not even the Jewish people. They're not even the Jewish people.
Adnan, hello.
Yeah.
What we agreed to do, I thought, was to steal man, which means you argue the opposite position.
What you believe.
In other words,
so I will argue your argument.
Joseph's position for him, as well as you can. This is how debaters standardly start, because it shows that you've understood your opponent's belief system and vice versa, and then you get a better dialogue.
I can argue their point better than they argue their point.
He'll demonstrate by starting.
So I'm going to show you how it's done, Adnan, just so you understand, because I think you got a little bit confused.
What I'm hoping to hear?
Yeah.
I'm hoping to hear.
I've understood.
Well, just so the audience, just for the audience.
Okay.
I'm hoping to hear some sense of empathy for the 750,000 Palestinians who got displaced and how it might feel if you were in their shoes within your Steelman, I hope.
So what?
Is that reasonable?
No. I'll explain why.
Why?
He will water down.
We'll see.
Okay.
Let's see how straight Joseph does it. Let's hear it.
But what I'm going to have to do is, because I don't believe the narrative,
I'm
going to have to continuously say this is the narrative. This is what.
Okay. Joseph is Steelmanning, but it's a constructive thing to do.
From a traditional, from the average Muslim in the park today, this is what they believe happened. So, since Muhammad offered protection to the Jews for the different tribes that were living in the Hijaz, there has been a protection of the Jews living in Muslim lands. When Umar ibn al-Khattab came to Jerusalem in 637, according to the Islamic tradition, I'm just getting it, not deliberately, but I just have to keep checking, in 637, instead of attacking or killing Jews or banishing them or not allowing them in the city, which was what the Christians had done, they didn't let the Jews in Jerusalem, the Muslim Umar ibn al-Khattab let the Jews in. He then, not only that, he ascended to the Temple Mount with them. He allowed them in to pray, and the Jews were able to pray in Jerusalem and live in Jerusalem for many, many years until the Crusaders came. And then the Crusaders kicked them out. But then when Salahuddin came back, he actually designated the Western Wall, the Kotel, as a place where the Jews could pray. And for centuries, Muslims believe that the Jews lived in good relations as a protected minority. The dhimma is not a negative thing, it's actually positive. It means you were protected. It means you are protected. Now, in 1930s, war broke out in Europe. Now, obviously, this is the Islamic narrative. There's a lot I'm missing out. There's a lot I'm missing out. Yeah. There was a war in Germany, a war in Europe, and millions of Jews were tragically, brutally and senselessly murdered, and Muslims are outraged by this. And Muslims played no part in this. Yet somehow, these displaced European Jews, who are white and not brown and not from the area, they came, this is the Muslim narrative, yeah? They came into the land and they slowly started taking over. The Palestinians, this is the Islamic narrative or the anti-Zionist narrative.
Joseph is speaking the truth for the first time in his life.
Good, this is a good conversation.
So Adnan, I understand, unlike you, I actually understand your arguments better than you do.
It's still it's good.
Yeah.
Go on.
And you have to do the same thing. We'll see how cowardly you are.
We'll see.
We'll see how cowardly you are. So then the Palestinians, now this is what they believe.
Yeah.
The Palestinians opened up their houses.
These shayateen know the truth.
Let them go, this is cool.
So opened up their houses,
Yeah.
and these European colonizers, who were part of a settler colonial project to take the land, actually deceptively then stole the land. They used, according to their tradition, violence, and there was a big war which was initiated by the European colonizers.
We're talking in 48 or before 48?
This is well, it's very hard to go into the history without giving you the accurate history. So let's just say 47, 48
Okay, fine.
period.
Fine.
There was conflict. Now what then happened was according to their tradition, there was a 67 war which was initiated by the Israelis, and the Israelis then took more territory. They took from Jordan, which was Jordan in 48, took the West Bank, and they called it part of Jordan.
Yeah.
And the Palestinians that were living there were given citizenship of Jordan, and Egypt took Gaza. And then in 67, the Zionists, according to their tradition, launched a war, and then took the West Bank and took Gaza. And since that point, from their position, they have had a military occupation of which they have oppressed the Palestinians and acted according to their tradition or their belief, an apartheid.
Sure.
Now, and the latest round of violence is actually, according to them, a reaction to what they would consider an apartheid, a blockade, etc., on Gaza and the West Bank, and they believe it's to use the language that they would often use. If you cage someone, you can't be surprised when they break out of that cage. It's language that they use. Is the language they will use. And the gentleman made the analogy here to the Warsaw Ghetto, which is they will often compare it to. They will look at. Actually, that's not Steelmanning. If I do that, so I'll avoid that. I'll avoid that. And now, what we have today in Gaza is a disproportionate response, where, according to their numbers, 14,000 civilians have been killed by a military force, which is one of the most powerful forces, which they believe is indiscriminately killing Palestinians. So that is a very, very brief summary of the standard narrative you'll hear here.
Congratulations, thank you very much.
Now let's see if Adnan can do the same.
Yes. Yes. Adnan, can you see he made a sincere attempt there, yeah?
This was a good attempt.
Okay, great. Now,
It was,
in response,
okay.
could you make
In
a similar
response to the Israeli narrative is the Jewish people have suffered for centuries. Okay, they suffered persecution from the Christians and the Muslims. This is the Israeli narrative, that even the Muslims oppressed the Jewish people. Therefore, in the 19th century, the anti-Semitic feeling was very, very high. Europe was filled with anti-Semitism. So the Jewish people, in particular, this group of political activists called Zionists, they came about and they decided that we want to make a separate homeland for ourselves where we can protect ourselves from the Christian oppression and the Muslim oppression, and we will make ourselves strong. So we will go in.
Sorry, for me, what year roughly are you talking?
19th century. This is Theodor Herzl,
Okay,
who wrote the book called The Jewish State, and the first Zionist conference took place in 1897
Fantastic to see you.
in Switzerland,
Sadly.
where this prospect was discussed.
Wow.
And the Zionists even went
fact check him. He's doing good stuff.
Sorry, I got distracted by a
Yeah,
so-
so Zionists went to convince the Turkish Sultan to give away the land of Palestine in return for paying off his debts he owed to the Europeans. The Turkish Sultan refused. Zionists waited for their time, and then First World War happened, and the British took the land of Palestine, and then Arthur Balfour, graciously gave the land of Palestine to the Zionist movement, in particular Lord Rothschild. He promised this land. This is all Zionist narrative.
Balfour gave it to the Palestinians?
Yeah, no.
No, he said
Zionist.
I misunderstood.
Yeah, Lord Rothschild, he wrote him a letter that Palestine will be given to you. Okay, now this is a Zionist narrative. Okay, so we will go in and we will take the land. Okay. By the way, I can produce evidence for every single thing I'm saying right here. From the Zionists.
Steelmanning.
Carry on, it's going good. It's
So
going much better than it
Zionists had meetings to discuss how we're going to take the land. Obviously, we cannot go and buy all the land, so we're going to have to take this land.
He hasn't understood the exercise.
Okay. So
he's giving you his history.
Listen,
the Zionists took the land. The Zionists took the land. It's not how Zionists
I'm speaking as the devil's advocate.
please.
Diabli advocatus. Okay, advocatus diabli, as I say, right? Okay. So we will go in and we will take this land from the Palestinians by hook or by crook, and we will pressurize the British to give up this land. Okay, and we will conduct some bombing campaigns. I'm talking facts.
That's not what we're doing.
You're still
They're
mad.
official.
You're meant to be arguing.
If you were an Israeli,
You would never use that language.
Okay. Let me be an Israeli.
Israeli
Let me
would
be a
never
lying
express
Israeli.
their intent
Let me
as we
be.
will take it by hook or by crook.
Let me be Mark Regev. Okay. Let me pretend to be.
be an
that's what we're
although
trying
it's
to.
not a pleasant.
The work is good. It's great.
Okay. So we are an oppressed people. We are an oppressed people. We have to have a homeland. We came into Palestine, and these Palestinians are just making noise. They are a bunch of violent people. They are not civilized. Okay, so we have to protect ourselves.
You're sure that's how they'd express it
Yes,
themselves?
100%. Yeah, Mark Regev has said this
But
multiple.
he's one Israeli.
But he's the spokesperson. He's the official spokesperson.
Sorry, when has Mark Regev ever said they're violent animals?
And that woman, the ambassador.
Zippy Hudavelli.
Zippy.
She's never said anything remotely like that.
She doesn't sympathize with the Palestinians at all.
So you
especially
genuinely-
those people who want to kill us.
So
So the Palestinian wants to. This is the narrative, official narrative.
He can't say man.
No, it is official narrative of the Israelis that Palestinians
why
want to kill
I
us.
said in good faith
We
he
cannot
can't.
give up this land. We gave the Palestinians
It's a
a chance.
difficult thing to do.
Okay, we gave
It's not
my
difficult.
position.
La,
The settlers,
astaghfirullah,
the settlers, come on,
la.
sorry, but astaghfirullah. The settlers are taking the land right now. As we speak, there are settlers taking the land. What are you talking about now?
Areas.
We do agree, we do agree that the United Nations has passed over 100, I think over 100 condemnations.
The United Nations has condemned Israel more than any other nation on the world.
Okay, that is true.
And they don't care.
Yes, but that doesn't
They
mean
don't
it's just
care.
that millions of
Because-
people have been killed in other conflicts.
said it did.
They don't care because they
Guys,
got
guys,
all
guys,
Western
guys,
politicians
guys,
by the
guys,
balls.
guys.
They got them by the balls.
This
We
is the
can
anti-Semitic
analyse the
conspiracy
facts. Just
theory.
want to agree.
Maybe it's Epstein. Maybe it's Epstein.
The way to do things
Maybe
is...
Epstein
Wait.
left behind some database.
Adnan, wait. The first thing we do is we put facts on the table and agree what the facts are.
It's
Then you evaluate them. I'm just saying it is a fact, isn't it, that the UN has
So
condemned...
can I explain something to you?
I just want to know if that's a fact.
Yeah, so yes,
It
it's
is
a fact. No, let me
Do we
respond.
agree it's a fact?
No, can I
We
respond?
all agree
The UN has
that the
condemned
UN
Israel.
has condemned
You
Israel
two, just so you know,
100
you two are on the same side here. So you have to play fair. You are not
No,
neutral party. You're not neutral.
How is he not?
I'm-
He's stating a fact.
He believes that Israel's carrying out an apartheid. He believes that Israel is an
He's
aggressor.
not doing a genocide.
UN.
I believe it
There
does
are
have the
human
right
rights
to
organizations
exist. I believe
saying
it does
this.
have the
So,
right...
which UN?
I believe it does
Human
have the
rights.
right...
That's okay.
you that.
No, human rights. I was going to say that. Yes,
I have
absolutely.
very
So
public...
I can argue.
Hello.
So hello.
The
Let me
whole
speak.
world-
Adnan, let
the
me
whole
speak.
world
Adnan,
is
you spoke for a long
against-
time.
The whole world
It's
is
against us.
you.
I know.
The whole world
It
is
always
against
has
you.
been.
Okay.
But thank God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not against us.
Guys,
Thank God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala returned us to our land.
So if your narrative is true, for the last 2,000 years, what was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doing with you?
So he.
If your narrative is true,
So the
why
narrative-
was he killing you, persecuting you through Christians and Muslims? If your narrative, where was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the last 2,000 years? Suddenly he has appeared now and he's supporting a genocidal state.
You know my
What kind of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is this?
You know my scripture as well as I know my scripture.
No, you
And
don't
the
know.
scripture is we were.
You're making claims that are false.
Anyway,
Allah is
but-
not with you. Allah is not. You are
Nothing happens without
you're
the will
truly
of Allah.
unfortunate that you're doing
Nothing
these crimes.
without the will
Allah
of
is not with
Allah.
the criminal.
Nothing
Allah
happens
is not
without the
even
well,
crimes.
You're going back
Even
to the other
crimes.
thing.
Even
The
crimes.
last 10 minutes was much
Allah
better.
is not with the
So
criminals.
anyway, just come back to what we're saying. So the reason
Allah
that
does
there's
not
been
love
more
the oppressors. The
United
Quran says
Nations.
Allah does not love oppression.
The last 10 minutes has been much better.
Yes.
I think as a viewer it's been much better.
Yeah.
The United
Absolutely, I agree.
Nations. The United Nations is a democracy of dictatorships. The UN Human Rights Commission is headed by countries like Iran. Like all of us would agree that Iran is not the beacon of human rights.
How many members are there in the UN?
No, in the Human Rights Council, they head of the
Okay,
Human
let me
Rights.
say something.
Can
Iran is 1,000,000 times better as a country, as a state, as
Adnan
much
is
as I don't
terrified to
like
let me
Iran.
speak.
I don't like Iran. But Iran, in comparison to Israel, has never killed innocent civilians.
No, Iran has never
okay.
killed innocent civilians. You heard it from Adnan Rashid.
Wait. Iran has never attacked another
Oi.
country, to my knowledge, apart from Syria.
I'm going home in a
We're
minute.
on the UN 100. We're on the UN 100 issue.
Iran.
You've all agreed it's a fact. Joseph seems to be arguing that the UN is fundamentally
So
misguided or corrupted.
no, can I explain?
Go
So
on.
the United Nations, how the United Nations works is it's basically a democratic process,
Yeah.
but the entities within it are not necessarily democratic. So nobody would look at a nation state like Iran and say they are a democracy, a functioning democracy. And so what happens is nations vote on United Nations resolutions in accordance to their nation's foreign policy. Now, State of Israel is one tiny state, and there's a lot of nations in the world that don't want it to exist, and they don't like it. And some of those nations have serious weight. Israel has one ally really at the United Nations, which is America, which will veto a lot of the Security Council resolutions. You basically have General Assembly resolutions and Security Council resolutions. And so so if you look at conflicts in the world, you would expect, and this is the point, you would expect the UN resolutions to fall roughly in line with like actual things like death tolls, levels of oppression. Now, if you add all the United Nations resolutions up in the world that they've ever issued, and then for the rest of the world in Israel, they've issued more resolutions against Israel than all the rest of the world.
Rightly so.
Adnan, let me
Rightly
finish.
so.
Let me finish.
Why not?
Now, if you look at Iraq
Shooting
and
himself in the
Syria,
foot, sure.
if you look at Syria, oh yeah, you're so neutral.
He's right.
Hold on.
So let me finish. Allow me to finish, and then you can argue with me, Mr. Neutral.
I'm not completely neutral.
I know that.
I'm trying to be.
So now allow me to,
objective.
so you be objective with this. In Syria, 500,000 people to 1 million people were killed by ISIS. ISIS, by every measure,
A million people
500,000
killed by
to 1 million.
ISIS.
500,000 to 1 million in Syria.
As
In
evil as they
Syria.
were. As
Adnan,
evil-
listen to what, before you start defending Daesh, listen to what I say.
Defending. I said, as evil as they are.
Let me.
As evil as they are, they
Are you
haven't
saying
killed a
that?
million
Are
Get
you
back to
saying?
the UN, get back to the
I
UN.
said 500,000 to 1 million people in Syria were killed in the Syrian conflict.
Yeah.
Now Adnan's going to debate against this. Fine. And everyone can Google and look at the research between 500,000 and 1 million in Syria, 1 million in Iraq. You look at things like the
Israel
Congo.
Israel can give you
Adnan,
thousands.
Adnan. Khalas. We're having a grown-up conversation.
Just because Bashar
We're
al-Assad
having a
killed people,
grown-up.
Israel can also
We're
do it.
having
We'll
a
get there
grown-up
when you wind
conversation.
up.
You can respond once I finish my point.
Yeah.
That's how it
Yeah.
works.
Okay.
So if you look at
I'm putting my
you look
gloves
at,
on.
you look at the Houthis and the Tutsis, you look at all the conflicts in the world,
I want
which
peace.
have millions of people killed, like around the world, from Nigeria to Kenya to Sudan, Somalia, all of these conflicts with millions, some of the worst genocides humanity has
So
ever
the
experienced.
UN hasn't
And
condemned.
listen, all of those conflicts added together, there were more resolutions issued against Israel where the death toll, even if you were to go with the most, I don't know how to phrase it because it's not the most, the highest estimates, would still number less than 100,000 casualties on both sides. Yeah? And so you have more resolutions issued against the Jewish state than all of those other genocides and wars combined.
And what inference are you drawing from
I'm
that?
saying
Yeah.
that the reason the United Nations issues resolutions based on nations' foreign policies, and there are many Arab nations and Muslim nations that are opposed to Israel, which have huge influence within the United Nations, and that is why in the last year, maybe 150,000 people, certainly since the beginning of the conflict, 150,000 people have been killed in Yemen, And in this conflict in Israel, even if you use Hamas's numbers, it's only 14,000. Yet Yemen's barely been mentioned at the United Nations, and Israel is mentioned every single. They've got a special commission just for Israel.
Are you not using a two wrongs make a right argument?
No, I'm saying there's a bias within the United Nations.
As a layman, it sounds to me like you're saying that because the United Nations has been lax in their condemnation of Yemen, it follows that their condemnation of Israel is
No, you're missing what I'm saying. You're missing what I'm saying. You're not understanding what I'm saying at all.
Maybe I'm not.
I'm not being clear to the audience.
What he's saying is that there is an overwhelming opposition against Israel because of the Arab states and the influence in the United Nations.
Yes.
That may be so.
Yeah,
that may be
that's what I'm
so.
saying.
But can
Really?
that may be so.
That is what I'm saying. I don't know if that's what I'm saying.
Well, then,
But
wow.
but having said that, can United Nations just make up evidence against Israel? Can they?
Okay.
Yeah, they potentially can. But have they is the question. No, they haven't. Every time they condemned Israel, it is based upon evidence, solid evidence against illegal settlements, against apartheid treatment of the Palestinians, against the concentration camp in Gaza, against all the evil actions of the state of Israel.
So can I respond to that?
Okay,
Yeah.
so it is all evidence.
I'll let speak, then I'll
So
respond.
Joseph has no defense against the state of Israel because the whole world, okay, he can say, oh, we are alone, we were oppressed, God is with us, we will overcome all these obstacles, we will fight the world, we will destroy the world in the process if we have to.
Let's
Okay,
run
okay.
by my understanding. So,
Yeah.
although they make 100 condemnations on the they make 100 condemnations. I'm trying to learn. Okay, I thought I knew
Good
this.
luck.
And, I thought I knew this, and now I'm thinking maybe I don't know this. I thought they made 100 condemnations, but then they only implemented sanctions or whatever in response to very few of them. So that speaks that they're not willing to actually deliver on the things they
UN is not
condemn.
going
which
to do
implies
anything.
they're
I'm telling you right now, the
No?
UN is not going to do anything. If they wanted to do something, it's been 70 years.
So
it's
they-
been 70 years
they
since
are
the Israelis have been brutalizing the Palestinian people.
So this
the
is
whole
the-
world knows this. Okay,
I
everyone
happen
knows
to
this.
agree with you,
Okay?
but I'm
Okay?
hearing. I was
The
amazed that you both agreed.
The solution is with the Israeli people themselves. I believe, sincerely, I believe, Israeli people will rise against their own government and they will change things
I hope so.
because they know we cannot
think
go
I
on.
hope so.
There are intellectuals in Israel.
Yeah.
There are scholars. There are philosophers. There are thinkers. There are sincere people in there.
Sure.
There are noble and moral people in
What if
there.
they disagree with you?
Okay.
They agree with me.
Okay. So they are Israelis. They are Jewish, but they are not Zionist. Okay. Many of them. Okay. I can name them. I can name them.
Which ones don't believe the state of Israel should exist?
They are going to become so influential that they will change. They will remove Muppets and jokers and clowns like Netanyahu and his cronies. These right-wing, hateful,
You're not neutral,
racist,
by the way.
apartheid-driven genocidal criminals. They will have to go because they are criminals. They are criminals. And Joseph, I hope we live to see this, both of us. We will get old if we don't die before that. Me and
We're
Joseph,
already old,
we have
now.
known. We have known each other. I hope we will live to see this change in our lifetime. Inshallah, Israel will change. Things will change. The Jewish people will live in the land of Israel or in the land of Palestine. In the land of Palestine, I must say, as they have for the last 1,000 years under the rule of Islam. Under the rule of Islam, they will live again. Yeah. Yeah.
So no, I've not spoke for a while.
And
I've just it's my turn.
I invite you to watch my podcast.
I thought I was going to invite you to
No,
Islam.
I will, because I'm really impressed that you participated.
Okay,
Yeah.
Muhammad Hijab, I did a podcast with him where I presented the evidence from Jewish sources as to how they felt under the rule of Islam. I put out
But then when
plenty
they
of,
speak,
I put out
you say they're
plenty of
liars.
evidence from
You call Maimonides a liar.
primary and secondary.
When would this be? When
It's already done.
no, when in history were they under?
Since the birth of Islam, we've been
I
under
presented
Islam.
evidence
Yeah,
for
basically.
1,000 years.
Oh,
From
okay.
Jewish rabbis,
Okay.
from Jewish travelers, from Jewish thinkers and scholars who lived
Okay.
under the domain of Islam and secondary sources. I presented primary sources and then I presented secondary
we've
sources.
done this
from
debate many
modern-
times, the Muslim Jewish
modern-
thing, so
Go and watch this podcast with Muhammad Hijab
No, I
and
will.
see the case we the Muslims
will.
have for the Jewish people. So this is
then-
not about the Jewish people.
And then,
Because you Steelmanned, I will.
Then what I will do, I would encourage you to not watch Adnan Rashid talk about Jews, but speak to Jews from Muslim countries
Okay.
and ask them. So they
Actually, hang on, this is a good question to ask.
Is it?
If
No,
you were
no,
going
no,
to recommend, hang on, wait. If you were going to recommend to me as a layman one podcast to watch,
I
to
can
learn
I
the
don't know
history,
podcasts. I can recommend
Okay,
books.
what can I watch on YouTube?
I don't know. I don't
Watch
know.
an Israeli spokesperson.
Okay.
No, he's talking about the
I'm
history of
asking
Jews.
what I want to hear both stories. Who are the best sources to go to?
I couldn't recommend a
Yeah, but
podcast.
that's a
You
book.
couldn't.
I could
I'm sorry, I'm
recommend
not
it.
much of a reader.
Yeah.
I'm getting
Okay,
a
but
lot
anyway,
of-
I want to come back because we've come way off topic. This is like Jews and Islam.
No, I'll tell you.
You tell me
He
quickly.
can't tell you.
Okay, fine.
Watch Netanyahu with Jordan Peterson.
I did.
Okay, watch that
I did.
podcast
I did.
and watch my podcast with Muhammad Hijab, and then you decide.
Thank you. I'll do
You
that.
decide.
If you can
Okay.
recommend any podcast, I'll watch it.
On
I
that
don't
note,
watch podcasts,
on
I
that
don't.
note, ladies and gentlemen,
So Adnan just spoke for.
You've got a channel.
I don't watch other people.
I have to go now.
I only do it for research.
Thank you very much, Roger. I
Adnan, but
I
I'm
hope
gonna-
you wake up. I hope one day you look at your children and start feeling sympathy for the Palestinian children as well. Thank you very much. Bye now.
Adnan, cheers. Thank you.
so
Well
much.
done.
Thank
You,
you.
you guys
So-
can shake hands.
No,
Go
He will
on.
never shake hands with it.
Not after.
Okay, fuck it. I don't know.
So
Sorry.
shaking hands with him means shaking hands with
But you did a good-
Netanyahu.
you did a good thing.
Netanyahu. I would never do that.
You did a good thing.
Sorry?
You did a good thing.
I
You
was-
still,
no,
I
mate. I was
appreciate
really
his time.
mate.
But him standing there with this t-shirt, I mean, this.
Don't
this
none about
sweatshirt.
him.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. I mean,
Don't about
when Palestinian children are being killed
I
in
hear- I
thousands.
get it, I
Come
get
on,
it, I
man.
get it, I get
Come
it.
on, this is unbelievable.
Yesterday, my grand.
I'm guessing you're burnt out by now. I think.
So we can have a real conversation if you want.
She's 89 years
Yeah.
old, and she died there from malnutrition and malnutrition.
We can actually. I'd rather have a conversation with you than anyone else in the park, truthfully, and that because you've got real. Both of us have lost friends, family, etc. in the conflict, so we can have a real conversation. Everyone else here is okay.
I can,
Okay, so first and foremost, no. But I want to wish both of you salam alaikum. Like genuinely, salam alaikum. And first and foremost, like I'm sorry to hear about your grandma, and that's like. If it goes to a debate or whatever, I want to
Do you
start
want to
with.
come in?
He might not want to be on camera. Some Palestinians
be on
don't like in
camera
case they
or
want to
No, I
go
don't
back.
care.
If you want to be on camera, if you guys want to debate and have
Yeah.
a chat, come in.
I don't even want it to be a debate. I'll debate
Well,
I'll debate Adnan
I
Rashid.
agree.
I don't want to debate people who are directly affected. I want to listen, and I want them to listen to me.
It's never going to happen.